So 17 cents a piece, and we're producing organic shiitake mushrooms as a part of our upcycling of these expended logs. Guten Yardening, everybody! Well, today's a very special day because this video marks the 100th upload to our YouTube channel. And we hope in the 6 months that we've been sharing our journey here toward food freedom, we hope that we've provided content that's valuable and shown you just what it takes to learn, to progress through this idea of gardening, this journey toward food freedom. That it's not always going to be a situation where every single time you grow something, plant something, every single time you do an experiment where you try something new, that you're going to have success, but that there are certainly methods that we can put in place to help improve our future outcomes. A large part of what we're discovering here is that regardless of the amount of space that we have, there are always ways to improve what we do. So today's video is no different. We're experimenting and trying to grow something that we've never grown before, and we're already seeing some results. A few weeks ago we traveled to the Dells here in Wisconsin to buy some mushroom logs. And the reason we went there is because we had read in our research that mushroom logs can add not just to the value of our soil in our compost, but in our garden as well. And we plan to experiment with some of those logs, breaking them apart, the sawdust and the bran meal that they're made out of, breaking that apart, putting it in our garden, putting it in various spots in our garden in order to improve the soil, add to the mycelium levels that are in our soil already, to the mycelium network, and just create a better permaculture system. But that's not the only thing we want to do with the logs that we bought. Now these are expended logs, meaning that they've already had a set of mushrooms grown and harvested from them. But the person that we bought them from said, if you do things right, you can continue the growing process because there are still mushroom spores in these logs. You just have to try to create the right environment for these mushrooms to grow. That's exactly what we're doing. So I'm going to show you the process that we went through in order to set up these logs for potential mushroom growth. And then I'm going to show you where we are today. By the way, right now I'm sitting in front of the second growing area that we have indoors. This grow tent is a miniature greenhouse of sorts. I'll show you what the interior looks like and walk you through what we have as a setup. But first, let's take a look at the logs and how we prepare these mushroom logs to try to grow some of our own organic shiitake mushrooms. The first thing we need to do is clean out the container, make sure it's in good shape for when we put the logs in here. So I got some nice warm soapy water and a brand new sponge. I'm going to clean out everything in here just again to make sure it's as clean as possible. I'm going to dry it out, and then we're going to add some water from our Berkey water filtration system. All right, the first thing we have to do is go through and get all these pieces of mushroom off that were old mushrooms. We're just going to clear these off really simply, and once we've done that, then we'll get them down in the water to start soaking and absorbing up some of that water that's needed in order to make these grow. All right, I've got 7 of these cleared off. They're down in this container. We're gonna go ahead and pour water in here. It's gonna take quite a bit, and these are actually pretty lightweight, so we'll have to hold them down in order to get them to soak under. But we're gonna soak them for about 4 hours because they need to absorb somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1 pound of water. The moisture is key for growing mushrooms. I am going to be quite careful as I pour this water. I'm going to be careful because these logs are really easy to break apart, and we don't want to do that. So I'm going to show you what I mean. This is where they're sitting right now. When I add a little bit of weight, they go all the way down. So this is plenty of water. We're going to leave them soaking for about 4 hours, and then we'll check on them. I just need to get a weight to hold these down. All right, it's been 4 hours. So hopefully these have soaked up. I improvised a weight on top of them to hold them down for these 4 hours. So we'll see here. Well, they've definitely gotten a little bit heavier. We were told they needed to absorb about 1 pound of moisture, and so I think that's probably the case. So we're gonna get these down to their setup and show you what that looks like. Now that we've got the logs soaked, we need to bring them down into our miniature greenhouse. This is an Ogro 5x5 miniature greenhouse. And let's go inside and see what it looks like. Now that we're inside, hopefully you can see just how much space is inside of one of these little greenhouses. Again, this is a 5x5 area, and the growing happens here on these trays on the side. And the way we've set most of these up is we've picked trays that aren't too deep, that we can keep a little bit of water or a little bit of sand in, and we've placed the logs directly into these trays. And you can see we've really used just about any kind of food safe tray we could find, trying to determine what the best fit is and exactly what will work for growing the mushrooms out of these logs. The logs that we soaked in the water the first time have been in here for just over a week, and we just finished soaking another 7 logs. So I want to show you what the progress looks like. One of the things we've had to try to do is recreate the environment that the mushroom farm had. And one of the things Eddie, the owner, talked about was having a high enough humidity level. And that is something we don't quite have in here yet. You can see our temperature range inside of this growing area is between 64 to 70 degrees, and right now it's 68 degrees. And our humidity, on average, it's around 45%. The temperature in here is just fine. It's supposed to be in that 65 to 70 degree Fahrenheit range. But the humidity, which is supposed to be in that 85 to 90% range, even with a humidifier in here, we're still not there. So we've got to work that piece out. For now, what we're doing is coming in here and continuously spraying and adding water to the tops of these logs to keep them damp. But have we had any success? Let's check out what just over a week of growing these logs has produced. Check out the size of the shiitake mushrooms that are already forming on these mushroom logs. Now, again, part of the issue that we're having is the inconsistency in humidity and trying to keep these damp. So as we're experimenting, we're trying different things. These are placed on some sand because the sand is helping us to keep the moisture in without it just being water everywhere. And you can see the difference. So growing on this one log, we have right now 4 mushrooms of varying size. These will probably harvest in a couple of days. So this setup simply has water in the base for the logs to continually soak up, and they do constantly soak up the water. You can see that happening right here. This log doesn't have anything popping out yet, but the second log, again, nice organic, that about 2.5 to 3 inch shiitake mushroom. And in this setup, which is very similar to the first one I showed you, except that we have a half a log here, we're having quite a bit of success. And you can see the size of these. They pop up everywhere along the sides. We've got 3 of them here, and look at this beauty. And what's really cool about this one, my hand for size comparison, it's about a 3 inch shiitake mushroom. You can see the spores that are dropping from underneath this mushroom. So these are some of the spores dropping down on the log from underneath the mushroom. So hopefully that means that we're actually reproducing or creating a system where this could reproduce again from those spores. Now these are logs that we put in here just 2 days ago, and if you look closely, and I'll try to zoom in just a little bit, you can see the beginnings of these shiitake mushrooms forming. And actually, I soaked these logs for a little bit longer this time. So the first time we soaked them for 4 hours, this time I soaked them for about 7 hours, and they definitely absorbed more water. And what I'm noticing here already, and there's another one right at the top there, what I'm noticing is there are more mushrooms forming, and they're forming faster than the first set. So here's one, and then we've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, there's a whole bunch more on these. So I think that's a lesson learned already in this process, is maybe soak them a little bit longer, allow more absorption of that water, and see if the results improve. Every single container we're using is food safe, but we're using everything from storage containers to plates, again, trying to see what's going to interrupt the mushroom growing process the least, so we get the most product out of this. And if you remember, I calculated the cost of each of these logs at about 17 cents a piece based on the volume we bought. So 17 cents a piece, and we're producing organic shiitake mushrooms as a part of our upcycling of these expended logs. How incredible is that? Part of the experimentation process is seeing what you can create and seeing how you can use the products you find in multiple ways. So as we improve this environment, as we go through the process of finding ways to grow these, this one's in a grow bag with sand. It's not producing that much. I think we let it dry out a little bit too much. You can see a couple small ones down here at the bottom. But I think that again has to do with making sure that the moisture level is higher. So as we continue to improve this growing process, we're going to continue to improve on our yields. I'm confident of that. What we're doing, I would consider to be extreme gardening. 365 days a year, we want to be able to grow food. And yes, we're not in the perfect setup yet. I'm not even sure that that's a thing that exists. But where we are is moving toward producing food every single day of the year. And yes, we're in zone 5. We're in a place where the winters get super cold and we can't grow outside. So what we're trying to do is maximize what we can grow inside, look at the varieties of plants that we can produce, see which ones produce the most benefit for us in the smallest space, and see what we can replicate, see what we can reproduce. And we still have so much left to learn, and we hope you continue to join us on that journey as we continue to learn and then share what we've learned with you. We know that not everything we do is going to be perfect, and we're going to show you our learning moments just as often as we show you our successes, because that's really what this experience is about. It's very easy to be discouraged when you just see people having massive success and you say to yourself, well, that's not how it worked for me. The reality of gardening is it's messy, and it is not something that is going to be 100% foolproof every time. There are always going to be elements that we can't control perfectly. Whether that's the germination of the seeds that we purchase or that we've harvested from our own plants, whether it's the weather, electricity goes out in indoor gardening, regardless of what it is, we have to stay on our toes and keep working toward the end product, which is always going to be making sure that we're providing the best food possible, the best nutritional value possible for our families. That's really the end goal in all of this. Keep our families well fed from the food that we produce, that we control every element of what's going in. And if we can do that, and if we can share that with you, then what we're doing here is absolutely a success. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for 100 videos, and as we've said in each one of those, please remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.